These tracks, they are yours, yet the lion walks beside you.
What does this mean?
The hunter rose before the sun as he always did. The savannah still slept under a thin veil of mist, pale and silent like a held breath. The sky was gray, not yet ready for color. Grass bent low under dew, and the air carried the smell of earth and cold ash from last night's fire. This was the hour he trusted most. He had walked these lands since boyhood. He knew which birds cried before danger and which sang only when peace ruled the ground. He could read a trail the way other men read faces. Broken grass spoke to him. Soft soil held memories. Nothing passed through this land without leaving a story behind. But that morning the land told him something impossible. He was checking snares near the edge of the hunting path when the birds stopped singing. Not one cry. Not one wing beat. Silence fell heavy, pressing against his ears. His body stiffened. Every lesson he had learned whispered warning. Silence like this meant a predator was near, or something worse. He knelt and touched the soil. That was when he saw the first footprint. Small, bare, familiar. His wife's. His fingers trembled as he traced the shape in the dirt. He knew her steps. He had watched her walk ahead of him many times, her feet light, careful, as if she did not want to disturb the ground beneath her. She had left the hut before dawn. That alone was strange. Then he saw the second trail. A paw print so large it swallowed the earth. Deep, heavy, powerful. The lion. His breath caught in his throat. The prints ran beside each other. Not scattered. Not broken. Not chased. They walked together. Step by step. The hunter's heart began to pound, loud and painful in his chest. He searched the ground again, desperate for signs of struggle, drag marks, broken grass, blood. There was nothing. Only calm footsteps. Human and beast. Side by side. No, he whispered, though no one was there to hear him. A lion did not walk with prey. A lion hunted. Fear crept into his bones, cold and sharp. His mind raced through every rule he knew, every truth passed down by elders. Lions meant death. Lions meant curses. Lions meant the land had chosen blood. And yet, the ground told a different story. Why would his wife walk willingly beside a lion? His thoughts turned dark. Had she been taken? Had fear frozen her legs? Or had she gone to the wild by choice? He remembered her face the night before, quiet, distant, eyes fixed on something far away. He had not asked what troubled her. He had been tired. The hunt had been long. Regret struck him like a spear. The trail led away from the village. Toward forbidden land. Toward places men were warned never to follow. The hunter stood slowly, feeling the weight of fear press against his chest. The elders would say to turn back. The village would say she was already lost. But love does not listen to fear. He tightened his grip on his spear, though it suddenly felt useless. Whatever walked beside his wife was not something steel could challenge. The mist began to lift. The sun's first light touched the lion's tracks, making them glow like scars in the earth. The hunter took one step forward. Then another. He followed the impossible trail into the unknown, into love, loss, and a truth the land had been waiting to reveal. Before fear entered his blood, before the land turned silent and cruel, the hunter's life had been simple. He believed in routine, in rising with the sun, in setting traps where animals passed each season, in returning home before darkness claimed the paths. Survival was his faith and tradition was his law. These things had kept his father alive. They had kept his grandfather alive. He believed they would do the same for him. And then he married her. She came into his life like soft rain, quiet, gentle, almost unnoticed at first. She did not speak loudly or laugh freely like other women in the village. She listened more than she talked. When she smiled, it was small but honest, as if each smile cost her something. He had loved her for that. In the early days of their marriage, he believed her silence meant peace. He believed her distance meant respect. He did not know how wrong he was. She woke before him most mornings, sweeping the yard, lighting the fire, moving through the hut with care. Sometimes he watched her without speaking, noticing how she paused often, as if listening to something no one else could hear. When he asked if she was well, she always said yes. When he asked what troubled her, she only shook her head. At night, as they lay side by side, her body was warm, but her thoughts felt far away. Her eyes sometimes stayed open long after sleep should have taken her. He noticed, but he did not press. There was always another hunt. Another lesson to teach the young men. Another day to survive. Love, to him, meant protection. Food. A roof. Safety. He did not understand that she needed more. There were moments, small and quiet, when her sadness almost broke through. Once, while washing clothes by the river, she stared into the water as if she expected it to speak back. Another time, she touched the old scars on his arms and asked him if the land ever called to him in his dreams. He laughed then, thinking it a strange question. "The land is just land," he said. "It takes, it gives, nothing more." She said nothing after that. He did not notice how her shoulders stiffened, how her eyes dimmed. She carried something heavy inside her, something old. He sensed it but chose not to name it. Men in the village were taught not to chase shadows. Some questions they believed only invited trouble. And so he stayed silent. He loved her, yes, but he loved the way things were even more. There were nights she reached for him, not with desire, but with fear. He felt it in her hands, in the way she held on as if afraid he might disappear. He mistook that fear for need, never asking what she was truly holding back. He thought providing was enough. Now, walking beside the lion's trail, guilt burned deeper than fear. He remembered every moment he had turned away. Every time he had chosen tradition over listening. Every time he had ignored the quiet sadness in her eyes because it was easier than facing it. She had tried to belong, to fit into village life, to be a hunter's wife. But part of her had never been there. Part of her had always been somewhere else, somewhere older, darker, and deeper than the village paths. As the hunter followed her footprints into the wild, a painful truth settled into his chest. He had married her body, but he had never truly known her soul. And now the land had taken her back. The village was waking, though the hunter felt as if it had been holding its breath all night. Smoke curled from clay chimneys. Chickens pecked nervously in the dust. Dogs barked and then fell silent. But the air itself seemed heavy, as if warning those who lived there that the world beyond their borders had shifted. He returned to the edge of the village, his mind still caught on the trail he had followed. The elders had gathered near the fire circle, their faces lined with worry and fear. When they saw him, the whispers began. "Do not follow her," one elder warned, voice shaking. "The land has already claimed her. She is gone to the spirits." Another shook his head. "No one walks beside lions and lives. You will join her in the earth if you go." The hunter listened, but their words fell like stones he could not lift. Fear had always been the village's shield. Fear of storms, of wild beasts, of ancestors angered by disobedience. And now it seemed to him that fear had become a cage. Rumors spread quickly. Mothers held children close and whispered stories of women taken by spirits, of shapeshifters with glowing eyes, of lions that were not lions but guardians of some ancient curse. The villagers did not know which to believe, but the power of fear made every tale feel real. Some turned to him with suspicion, others with pity. "You should not go," they said, "even if she is alive. She belongs to the wild now." The hunter saw in their eyes what he feared most, the reflection of his own doubt, the voice of every rule he had ever learned. If he stepped beyond the village's protection, he would walk alone. And yet he could not stop himself. Love, real, unshakable love, would not listen to warnings. It did not weigh risk or heed superstition. It demanded action. And his heart screamed that his wife was alive. Alive, and somewhere just beyond the edge of sight, calling to him with footprints pressed into the dawn. The elders shook their heads again, murmuring curses and prayers. The hunter ignored them. They would not understand. They had never seen her smile, that quiet, secret smile that held both fear and longing. They could not know the way she had walked beside him through years of silence, never revealing what stirred in her heart. He gathered his spear, checked the knife at his belt, and adjusted the leather strap of his water pouch. He looked back at the village one last time, at the women cooking over fires, the children still rubbing sleep from their eyes, the elders whispering about death and spirits. He felt their fear like a weight trying to drag him back into safety. But he stepped forward anyway. Every stride carried a mixture of courage and dread. He knew the stories could be true. He knew that men did not always survive the wild, that lions were merciless and spirits often unforgiving. Yet the thought of her, her quiet voice, her faraway gaze, the life they had begun together, was stronger than fear. And so, leaving the village behind, he entered the land they feared. Every step he took was a choice. Between tradition and love. Between safety and the unknown. Between accepting her loss and fighting for her return. In that moment, alone at the edge of the forbidden, he understood the truth that superstition could not teach. Courage was not the absence of fear, it was walking forward in spite of it. The forest waited. Not the kind of forest with clear paths and predictable sounds. This land was older, wilder. Each tree seemed to lean forward, shadows shifting as if watching. The hunter felt the weight of eyes upon him, though he could see nothing. Even the wind whispered differently here, carrying hints of distant movement, smells he could not name. He bent to study the footprints again. Her feet, delicate, human, yet leaving impressions that seemed to glow with intention. Beside them the lion's prints, massive, impossibly precise. They followed her step for step, side by side, with a calm he had never seen in a predator. Not a hint of panic. Not a trace of struggle. It should have been impossible. Yet there it was, the undeniable truth pressed into the earth. He followed them, moving slowly, careful not to disturb the trail. Broken branches snapped underfoot, yet these two trails remained untouched, unbroken. Thorns scratched his legs but drew no blood. Even the smaller creatures kept their distance. The forest seemed to part for them, giving them space, acknowledging the impossible partnership it held. Memories assailed him with every step. He saw her face in every shadow, remembered her soft sighs as she brushed her hair back, the way her eyes would linger on the horizon as if seeking something far away. He could almost hear her whispering without sound. Why had she left without warning? Why had she chosen this path? Why beside a lion? His confidence as a hunter began to waver. He was trained to track, to read the wild, to anticipate danger. But this trail defied every law he knew. Each paw print mocked his understanding. Each footprint demanded faith he did not know he had. Fear crept in, not the fear of a beast but the fear of not knowing. Hours passed. The forest grew darker under its thick canopy, though the sun had barely risen. Shadows lengthened and twisted, playing tricks on the mind. He caught glimpses, something moving between the trees, but every time he turned there was nothing. Still he pressed on. Obsession, he realized, had taken root. Love had pushed him past caution, past superstition, past reason. Yet it was not a reckless obsession. It was a desperate, aching need to understand her, to find her, to ensure she was safe. And then came the strange calm. The air thickened. Birds were absent. Even insects stopped. A river murmured somewhere unseen, but it sounded too far away, too quiet. The forest was waiting, holding its breath, testing him. He stumbled over a fallen tree and landed with a thud, shaking off the dirt. The sight of her footprints beside the lion's made him pause again. Nothing had changed. The trail remained steady, unbroken, unwavering. For a moment he questioned everything he knew. Perhaps the world he understood was smaller than he thought. Perhaps the spirits, the old stories, the whispers of the elders, they were all fragments of truth. A shiver ran through him. He could feel the weight of the unknown pressing against his chest, a mixture of dread and awe. Yet still he walked. Step by step, her footprints and the lion's guided him deeper into the forbidden. He knew that each stride was a step into a world beyond reason, into a place where the rules of man did not apply. And with every step, he realized he was leaving the man he had been behind. The hunter who tracked for survival was gone. In his place was a man driven by love, by faith, and by the need to understand the impossible. The forest watched. The wind whispered. And the footprints continued, leading him further into the heart of the unknown. The deeper he went, the more the forest seemed alive, not with threats but with purpose. The hunter had always believed lions were hunters, predators of flesh and fear. But now, following the trail, he began to notice subtle signs that contradicted everything he thought he knew. Broken branches along the path were not chaotic. They were arranged, almost guiding him. Scraps of fur from small animals lay untouched, as if scavengers had been kept at bay. The usual signs of a lion's kill, the blood, the panic, were absent. It was as though the lion walked with intention, not appetite. He stopped beside a cluster of thorny bushes and noticed something extraordinary. Tiny birds, usually skittish, perched calmly just beyond the paw prints. Squirrels and small creatures scurried in the underbrush without fear. Every corner of the forest seemed to yield space, almost as if it respected what walked in silence between the giant paw marks and the delicate human steps. His heart pounded. Could it be possible that the lion was not the enemy? Could it be guarding, not hunting? He remembered the old stories, tales told by the elders by firelight. About guardian lions that protected sacred ground, about ancestral spirits bound to flesh and bone, and of women marked by the spirits of the wild. He had dismissed them as legend, as warnings to keep children from wandering too far. Now he wondered if the legends had been true all along. A strange mixture of hope and fear rose within him. He longed to believe that she was safe, yet every instinct screamed caution. He had seen lions kill without mercy. How could one possibly walk beside a woman without claiming her as prey? He knelt beside the trail, letting his fingers trace the soil. The human prints were warm. The lion's prints were cold but steady, deliberate. The forest held a rhythm, a pulse he could not fully grasp. And with that rhythm, a quiet truth began to take shape in his mind. She was not lost to the lion. The lion had not taken her. It had chosen to accompany her. The thought both terrified and reassured him. His mind spun with possibilities. Perhaps she had discovered something the village did not understand. Perhaps she had been touched by the old magic whispered in stories. Perhaps the forest itself had claimed her, but not in the way he had feared. He rose, brushing dirt from his knees, and continued. The trail led upward now into rocky terrain. The trees thinned and the wind carried a scent that was foreign, earthy, strong, alive. The footprints remained side by side, perfectly in sync. Each step told a story, of care, of trust, of a bond older than fear. For the first time the hunter allowed himself to hope. Not the fragile hope that trembled like a candle in the wind, but a deep, raw hope born of understanding. Perhaps she was not a victim. Perhaps she had chosen this path, and the lion had chosen her. His chest tightened with conflicting emotions, relief, awe, and fear. Relief that she might still be alive. Awe at the realization that the world was far greater than he had imagined. Fear that he was stepping into a power he could neither control nor fully comprehend. Yet love demanded he continue. Curiosity demanded he follow the trail to its end. And so, despite the fear knotting his stomach and the weight of the unknown pressing against him, he pressed on. The forest no longer felt entirely hostile. It was cautious, observant, watching him as much as he watched the trail. And somewhere beyond the next rise, he sensed that the truth of the lion, and of his wife, was waiting to reveal itself. As he followed the trail, the hunter's mind began to wander, filling the quiet with memories of her he had never truly understood. Each footprint whispered secrets he had never heard, and each paw print beside them spoke of something older, something ancient. He remembered her as a child. He had never known much of her past. Her parents had died when she was young, leaving her in the care of distant relatives who treated her as more of a burden than a child. She had grown up with whispers around her, rumors that she was marked by the spirits, that the land itself had plans for her no human could understand. She never spoke of it, never cried about it, only carried it in the quiet way she moved, the distant look in her eyes, the faint tremor in her hands when the wind changed. The hunter realized now how little he had truly known. He had married her body, yes, but her soul had always been elsewhere, bound to something older than village life. Her quiet sadness was not sorrow alone. It was the weight of destiny she had never shared. He remembered the nights she would leave the hut to walk alone, staring at the horizon as if listening to the wind. He had thought she was restless, lonely, perhaps unhappy with the constraints of their small life. He had never asked why. He had never followed her. He had been too caught in survival, in routines, in the laws of men. And now, the footprints beside the lion told him what she had carried all those years. She had been born for the wild, for the land, for a connection he could never claim. She had tried to hide it, to live a life with him, to belong to the village, but the forest had called her back. He remembered a conversation they had once had beside the river, years before. He had been teaching him to track, and she had asked, almost in passing, "Do you ever feel that the land chooses for you?" He had laughed. Land does not choose. Men do. But now he knew she had been listening, and the land had chosen her long before he ever met her. Tears stung his eyes, a mixture of grief and understanding. She had not abandoned him. She had not fled in fear. She had not betrayed him. She had followed the path laid out for her, one that he could not walk beside her on, no matter how desperately he tried. Every step he took on the trail was a reminder of how much he had failed to see. He had believed that love was enough, that protection was enough, that safety was enough. But she had needed freedom, destiny, and a connection to something older than his arms could provide. The hunter clenched his fists, gripping his spear tightly. He had been blind to her pain, blind to her needs, blind to the truth of who she was. And yet he could not stop now. If she had chosen this path, if she walked beside a lion willingly, he owed it to her to follow, not to hold her back, not to demand her return, but to witness the life she had been given by the land itself. Her footprints led him further into the unknown, and for the first time he understood that he was not simply tracking a woman or even a lion. He was following the threads of a destiny far greater than he had imagined. A shiver ran down his spine, half fear, half awe. The forest around him seemed to acknowledge this revelation, the trees bending slightly in the wind as if to whisper, "You are beginning to see." The hunter's heart was heavy yet resolute. He would not turn back. He could not. She had lived all her life between two worlds, and he would follow her into whichever world she had chosen. Into the wild, into the sacred, into the place where men were forbidden to walk. Because he loved her, he knew now that love was not about possession. It was about understanding. And understanding demanded he continue. The forest grew thicker. The air turned heavy, sticky with the scent of damp earth and ancient leaves. The trees loomed tall, their trunks twisted like the bones of some forgotten giant. The light that filtered through the canopy was dim, muted, as though the sun itself hesitated to enter this sacred place. He had heard the warnings in the village. Do not enter the land beyond the river. Do not cross the old stones. Do not follow the path of the lion. He had dismissed them before. Now, standing at its edge, he understood why. Every step into this forbidden territory felt like crossing a threshold between life and legend. The forest seemed to breathe, watching him, judging him. Birds hid silently in the branches. Insects paused mid-flight. Even the wind felt deliberate, pressing against him, tugging at his shoulders, whispering in a language he could not understand. The trail continued, her footprints beside the lions, but now the forest demanded vigilance. A wrong step could mean injury. A careless touch could mean death. Every sound was amplified, a snapping twig, the rustle of leaves, the soft thump of distant paws. The hunter's heart pounded in rhythm with the land itself. And yet he pressed forward. The heat grew oppressive. Sweat stung his eyes. His legs ached. Branches clawed at his skin, tearing his shirt. He stumbled over roots that seemed to appear out of nowhere. Every instinct screamed to turn back. Every survival lesson he had learned since boyhood begged him to retreat. But he could not. Not now. He remembered her. The girl who had grown up in silence, carrying something older than the village. The woman who had smiled quietly, even as her heart ached with secrets. The one who had chosen this path. Love had carried him this far, but here it was not enough. Courage alone would not sustain him. He needed humility. He needed endurance. He needed to let the forest test him, to show him that the world he knew was small, and that she had always belonged to something larger. The air thickened and shadows moved strangely. He thought he saw shapes in the corner of his vision, forms that were neither human nor animal. He caught glimpses of light glinting off eyes in the underbrush. He felt pressure on his chest as though the forest itself weighed him down, challenging his every step. Visions rose before him, memories of her childhood, her whispered questions, her longing to belong somewhere beyond his reach. A lion prowled just beyond his sight, its gaze unwavering. The wind carried sounds of voices, soft and urgent, calling to him. He could not tell if they were real or imagined. He faltered. The hunter sank to one knee, breath ragged. For the first time he felt small, not a master of the land, not a skilled tracker, not a man who could face danger without fear. Just a man, human and fragile, standing in the presence of something far older and more powerful than himself. Yet he rose again. Because love demanded he continue. Not to claim her, not to save her, but to understand. To witness. To honor the life she had been given. Each step forward became an act of humility. Each footfall a lesson in patience and endurance and surrender. He was tested physically, spiritually, and emotionally. The forest pushed him to his limits, forcing him to confront his own arrogance, the mistakes he had made in marriage, the pride that had blinded him to her truth. And still he walked. The path grew narrower. Rocks jutted like teeth. Mist rose from hidden springs, swirling around him. The sounds of the forest became almost musical, a rhythm that guided him, challenging him to match its tempo, to respect its power. In the distance, he glimpsed a clearing, bathed in golden light that did not belong to the sun. The footprints continued into it, and he sensed she was there, just beyond his sight. The hunter knew he could turn back. No one would blame him. No one would question his choice to retreat. But he could not. Not when every step he took brought him closer to understanding her, closer to the truth, and closer to the life she had chosen. One he could never fully walk beside, but one he could honor. With a final, steadying breath, he stepped into the clearing. The forest seemed to exhale, acknowledging his resolve. And ahead, the footprints, her feet, the lion's paws, waited to reveal the secret that had drawn him through fear, through pain, through the land where men did not walk. The clearing was quiet. So quiet that the hunter thought the world itself had paused to watch. Mist lingered at the edges, curling around twisted trees, and the sun, breaking fully over the horizon, spilled golden light across the open space. The footprints ended here, her small, delicate steps and the massive, deliberate paws of the lion. And there it was, the lion. It did not move, did not roar, did not lunge. It simply stood, immense and regal, fur shimmering in the sunlight, eyes steady, unblinking. The air seemed to hum with its presence, a tension that was neither threat nor fear, but recognition. The hunter froze. Every lesson he had ever learned about predators, every story of lions devouring without mercy, screamed at him to attack or retreat. Yet the lion did neither. It simply observed. His gaze drifted to the woman beside it. She stood tall, calm, her eyes not on him but on the horizon. Her expression was serene, yet it carried the weight of years, of choices, of a life bound to something larger than herself or the village. She had walked here willingly. And the lion had walked with her. The hunter's chest tightened. Disbelief, fear, awe, and longing collided inside him. How could this be? How could a lion, one of nature's fiercest predators, walk beside her with no harm? How could she remain unharmed in the presence of such power? And then it became clear. The lion was not her enemy. It had not taken her. It had chosen to accompany her, to guard her, to guide her. The massive creature was a protector, a witness, a companion of the wild, bound to her in a way the hunter could barely understand. He felt a shiver run down his spine. Every fear he had carried, every superstition, every story of spirits and curses, it all began to make sense. The forest, the legends, the warnings, they were not threats. They were markers, guiding him to this moment of revelation. Tears pricked his eyes. He had thought he was here to save her, to reclaim her from danger. But he realized now that he had been blind. She did not need saving. She had never needed saving. She had only needed someone to understand. The lion lowered its massive head, exhaling slowly as if acknowledging him. Its eyes met his, and the hunter felt no hostility, only intelligence, patience, and a silent demand for respect. This was a creature older than him, older than the village, older than any law he had ever known. And the woman beside it, his wife, was part of its world, part of its rhythm, part of the ancient bond that had always been hers. The hunter dropped to one knee. Not out of fear but reverence. He understood, finally, that he had misunderstood everything. The lion was not a predator, she was not lost, and the forest had never been against him. They had only been waiting for him to see the truth. A deep, aching humility filled his heart. He had chased her out of ignorance, had judged her absence as betrayal, had measured love by possession and safety. And now he knew, love was not possession. Love was understanding. Love was witnessing without control. The lion remained still, its presence a bridge between man and wild, human and spirit, past and destiny. The hunter realized he was in the presence of something sacred, a bond that transcended fear, a truth older than his heart could have imagined. His wife turned to him then, eyes softening, and for the first time in years, he saw the depth of her life, the life he had never been able to give her. And he knew he could not hold her. He could not pull her back to the world he knew. All he could do was honor her. And in that quiet, golden clearing with the lion watching, the hunter understood the meaning of the footprints. They were not a trail to fear, but a path to revelation. A path that had led him at last to the truth. The clearing seemed suspended in time. The hunter knelt, his eyes fixed on the woman who had always been more than he could understand, and on the lion that had silently guarded her steps through the wild. She turned slowly, her gaze meeting his. There was no fear, no shame, only the quiet certainty of someone who had walked far beyond the limits of his world. He saw the depth of her soul, the life she had carried in silence, the destiny that had always been hers. And in that moment he understood that she must make a choice, and he could not choose for her. Her voice, soft but steady, broke the stillness. "I cannot live the life you dreamed for me," she said. "I cannot stay in the village, in the hut, under the rules of men who do not understand what I am." His heart clenched. The words he had longed to hear, words of return, were now impossible. Every instinct in him screamed to beg her, to hold her, to drag her back into the world he knew. But he could not. "You have been with me all these years," he whispered, his voice cracking. I thought love meant keeping you safe." Her eyes softened, filled with both sorrow and compassion. "Love does not chain, and safety is not life. I am bound to this land, to the lion, to what I was always meant to be. If you truly love me, you will understand that." He felt a sharp pain, a grief that tore at his chest. The thought of losing her, even as she stood alive and free, was unbearable. Every dream he had held, every hope for their life together, shattered like fragile glass beneath the weight of her destiny. And yet, love demanded more than desire. He saw the truth in the footprints, in the calm strength of the lion, in the way she moved with the rhythm of the land. She had walked this path willingly. She had chosen life, not the life he imagined, but the life she had been given by forces older than either of them. I cannot hold you," he said finally, voice low and steady, though tears ran freely. "If you return to me, it must be because you choose it, not because I ask it. You are not mine to keep." She stepped closer, and for a heartbeat, the hunter thought he might touch her, might feel the warmth of the life he had loved for so long. But she stopped, a respectful distance between them, her expression gentle but firm. "I am grateful for you," she said. "For your love, for your courage to follow me here. But this is my path. You must let me go, even if it breaks your heart." The lion moved slightly, brushing its massive paw against her side, a silent guardian acknowledging the choice. The hunter felt awe and sorrow in equal measure. He realized that the bond he had tried to possess was not his to command. She had been free before he ever understood, and she remained free now. He knelt, bowing his head. His grief was raw, but beneath it was understanding. Love, he finally saw, was not about keeping someone safe or close. Love was sacrifice. Love was letting go even when every fiber of your being screamed against it. Her eyes lingered on him, full of gratitude, sadness, and a love he had never known could exist in such form. Then she turned to the lion, stepping forward into the deeper forest, into the life that was hers alone. The hunter watched her go. His heart shattered, but his soul began to understand. He had followed the footprints to the truth, and now he had to follow the path of love that did not chain. The clearing was empty, but for him, the mist and the paw prints etched forever beside the faint memory of her steps. And in that emptiness he felt the weight of love's true lesson, that to love fully sometimes one must let go completely. The clearing felt emptier now, yet somehow heavier. The hunter stood alone, the footprints of her and the lion stretching behind him like echoes of a life he could not reclaim. The wind stirred, whispering through the branches, carrying with it the faint scent of her presence, and the quiet authority of the guardian lion. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the weight of what he had witnessed. Pain gnawed at his chest, raw and unrelenting. He had followed her through fear, through the unknown, through the sacred land where men were not meant to tread. And he had learned something that no spear, no lesson, no survival skill could have ever taught him. Love was not possession. Love was understanding. Love was sacrifice. Every instinct in him urged him to chase her, to call her back, to hold on to the life he had imagined. But the truth had been laid bare in the footprints, in the calm of the lion, in the serene certainty in her eyes. She belonged to a world beyond him, a world he could witness, honor, but never inhabit. He knelt, resting a hand on the earth where their trails had intertwined, feeling the imprint of both human and lion. For a long moment he let his grief flow freely. Tears streaked his face, and the pain of letting go almost crushed him. Yet in that surrender he felt something new, a lightness, a quiet peace. The lion stirred, massive and deliberate, its gaze turning toward him. In that look he felt recognition, respect, understanding. It was as if the creature, ancient and bound to forces he could not name, acknowledged the change within him. That he, too, had learned the lesson of the wild, to love without control, to accept without grasping, to honor without possessing. He rose to his feet, the ache in his chest still present, but tempered by clarity. The forest no longer felt like a cage, no longer like a test designed to punish. It was a teacher, and he had passed in the only way that mattered. He whispered into the wind, a vow to himself and to the life he had loved. "I will not try to hold you. I will not try to command the path you were born to walk. I will honor you always." The lion shifted, settling down on the ground, calm and protective. And in that moment the hunter realized the profound truth of the footprints. They were not marks of fear or struggle. They were the path of freedom. They were a map of love unbound. As he turned to leave the clearing, a deep quiet settled over him, unlike any silence he had known before. It was a silence of acceptance, a silence of wisdom, a silence that said some things are not meant to be controlled, some lives are not meant to be claimed, and some loves are not meant to bind. With every step back toward the edge of the sacred forest, he felt his grief soften into understanding. The pain remained, yes, but so did the reverence, the respect, and the humility that only comes when a man truly learns the meaning of love. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the trees, he sensed her steps and the lion's paw prints fading into the heart of the wild, together yet separate. And he knew he had finally understood. Love that does not chain is love that lasts forever, even in absence. The path back to the village was quiet. Not the forest's quiet, which had felt alive, testing him, guiding him, and whispering secrets. No, this was the quiet of absence, a hollow echo of the life he had once imagined. The footprints he followed before were gone, erased by time or wind, leaving only the memory of where they had walked together. He walked slowly, each step deliberate. His arms ached, his legs were sore, and his chest still bore the weight of grief. Yet, unlike before, he did not feel fear. Not anymore. He had faced the unknown, seen the impossible, and endured the test of love unbound. Now he carried wisdom tempered by sorrow. The village appeared over the rise, familiar and ordinary, yet somehow smaller than he remembered. The smoke curled from chimneys, children ran through the dust, and elders sat in the shade, murmuring. Life had continued in his absence, indifferent to the journey he had undertaken, indifferent to the woman who had chosen the wild over the hearth. They saw him first, a solitary figure emerging from the edge of the sacred forest. Whispers spread through the village like wildfire. Some stared with suspicion, others with pity. A few dared to look with awe. "Where is she?" a woman asked, her voice trembling. "Did the lion?" He shook his head, voice quiet but steady. "She is alive," he said. "But she is not mine to bring back." Murmurs rose. Some elders frowned. Some muttered warnings about spirits and curses. They could not understand. They had never seen the forest breathe, never seen the lion watch, never seen the choice that lay between love and possession. He walked through the village, unhurried, carrying himself differently. The man who had left was gone. The hunter who returned was quieter, slower, but stronger in ways that could not be measured by strength or skill alone. He had been humbled by the land, transformed by the truth of love, and forever changed by the woman he had tried to hold. Children followed him with curiosity, sensing something different in his steps. Young men looked at him with respect, though they did not know why. And the elders? Well, some still shook their heads, unable to reconcile the story with what they thought they knew. He did not argue. He did not explain. He had no need. Some lessons he had learned were not meant for everyone. Some truths existed beyond the grasp of fear and tradition. He returned to his hut alone, the weight of solitude pressing against him. Nights were long and quiet now, the absence of her presence sharp against his memories. He no longer hunted lions. He no longer measured his worth by survival or courage in battle. Instead, he walked in balance with the land, protecting it where he could, learning from it where he must, honoring the life of the woman he loved without ever seeking to reclaim it. And in his quiet moments he thought of her. Not with anger, not with despair, but with reverence. He saw her walking beside the lion, free, strong, untamed, exactly as she had always been. He saw the footprints side by side, fading slowly into the earth, carrying the story of a love that did not chain. The village would speak of him in whispers. Some would call him wise. Some would call him cursed. Some would simply tell his story as a warning. But he no longer cared for their judgment. He carried within him a deeper understanding, that loss could be transformed into respect, grief into patience, and love into freedom. And so he lived on, changed forever, quiet yet unbroken, a man who had followed the footprints of truth and returned not with possession, but with understanding. Years passed. The hunter who had followed the impossible trail grew older. His hair grayed at the temples, and the lines of experience marked his face. The villagers noticed the change. He moved slower now, spoke less, and carried an air of quiet strength that neither demanded attention nor sought praise. He no longer hunted lions, nor did he boast of the forest he had traversed. Instead, he walked the edges of the village, tending to the land, guiding the young, and honoring the balance between man and wild. But the story of the footprints of a woman and the lion, lived on. Hunters would sometimes wander near the sacred forest and stumble upon strange tracks. Side by side, one delicate, unmistakably human, and the other massive, perfectly aligned. Some would stop in awe. Some would whisper prayers. And many would turn back, sensing that this was not a trail meant for them. They told stories of a man who had loved and lost, yet understood what most never could, that true love does not bind, and that freedom is the truest form of devotion. They spoke of the lion not as a beast but as a guardian. They spoke of the woman, alive somewhere in the heart of the wild, walking a path that no human could follow, yet leaving traces that inspired reverence and caution. The hunter's own heart remained marked by absence. He often thought of her, her calm smile, her unwavering courage, the footprints they had left together in the dawn. Yet the grief had softened into a gentle ache, a reminder of the lessons he had learned, that love is a gift, not a possession, that understanding is deeper than desire, and that some bonds, though invisible, endure across time and distance. He would walk along the edge of the forest at dusk, tracing his fingers over the soil, imagining the path she had taken. The lion's paw prints would appear beside hers in his memory, perfect and eternal, a testament to the life she had chosen and the freedom she had earned. And the villagers would speak in hushed tones of the man who had returned alone, yet complete. Of the courage it took to let go. Of the reverence for life in the wild. And sometimes, when the wind shifted and the mist hovered low over the grass, hunters would swear they saw the faintest impression of two lives walking together. One human, one lion, side by side, fading slowly into the earth, leaving a legacy that no fear, no death, and no time could erase. The footprints remained, a reminder to all who dared to follow them. Love is not about holding tight. It is about walking together, even if only for a moment, and honoring the paths each life must take. And in that quiet, haunting truth, the hunter found peace.